Hello 8th graders. In this video lesson we'll be taking a look at IXL's assignment N3. So N is about the coordinate plane and N3 is specifically about following directions on a coordinate plane. So as that loads, I'm going to make this smaller and drag myself out of the way a little bit. And we're also going to load some notes on the screen that should look familiar from the first two N assignments. There we go. So on the screen are notes about coordinates on a graph. Again, remember, every point that's located on a graph can be identified by its x and its y coordinates. X telling me my position left or right on the graph, and y telling me my position up or down on the graph. And here they're going to make you follow some directions in addition to being able to plot some points. So they tell us here, let's go ahead and put a box in blue around the first question. It says you start at the point 1 for x and 2 for y. You move left 1 unit. Where do you end up? So my first job here, and I'm going to use a blue dot to get us going, my first job is to say, where do we start? Well, x is 1, y is 2, so I'm going to go right by 1 and up by 2. And here where that blue dot is, that's going to be my original start point. Now they say you move left by 1 unit. And I'm going to show in red now where I'm going to end up. So if I'm here for 1 for x and 2 for y, and I move left by 1 unit, I end up right here. Just counted left by 1 unit. And the coordinates for that new point there, the x and the y coordinates for where that red point is, we see for the x value, we're now not left or right from the origin at all. All we are is directly above the origin. So our x value is now no longer 1, our x value is 0. And our y value is still at 2. We didn't move up or down at all. So now some of you may be saying, hey, Mr. Doherty, there was a shortcut there. We knew we were at 1 and 2. We knew we moved left by 1 unit, and if I move left by 1, that just makes x go lower by 1. And you are absolutely right. Some of you might have just seen the x will lose 1 unit if I go 1 left. So I could drop this down to 0 and 2 without even counting on the graph. Both are fine options. Either way, if you start at this blue point 1 and 2 and move 1 unit left, your new coordinates are 0 and 2. All right, our next question is now on the screen. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and it says you start at the point 6 and 10. You move right by 2 units. Where do you end up? So again here, I'm going to go ahead and use a blue marker, and in blue, I'm going to go ahead and put the point that we start at, in this case 6 for x and 10 for y. 6 to the right, 10 units up. This point in blue is our original point, 6 for x, 10 for y. Now they say you move right by 2 units, so I'm just going to look at this graph, count right by 2 units. And in red, I'm going to go ahead and put a dot at the new location after we've counted right by 2 units. I'll go ahead and identify those coordinates, the x and the y location for this red point. Now it's instead of 6 to the right, if we went 2 more to the right, it now has an x value of positive 8. We did not go up or down at all, so the y value remains at 10. And some of you were saying, Mr. Doherty, all we had to do was add 2 units to the x value because we were going right by 2. That means the x gains 2. And so if you had just added 2 to x, you would have also got to 8 for x and 10 for y. At this point, we're going to skip ahead to a couple more difficult questions later in the IXL assignment. And we're going to skip again because that looks pretty similar. Okay, so our next question as we scroll down, and give me 1 second to clean up the old notes. Okay, this time they say you start at 2 for x and 0 for y. You move left by 3 units. Where do you end up? So again, here we'll be at 2 for x and 0 for y. And I'm going to go ahead and put a purple dot this time. That's our start point. And now we need to move left by 3 units. 1, 2, 3. And in red here for our end color, I'm going to put that red dot right here. So if we start at positive 2 and move left by 3, we're going to get further than 0. We're going to move into the negatives. We're effectively doing 2 minus 3, which puts us at a negative 1. We didn't go up or down at all, so our y value still sits at 0. So here, now we're just moving into one of the negative pieces of the graph, this time on the negative part of the x-axis. So we'll plug in our answer of negative 1 and 0. And we'll keep it moving. Now, we're going to skip ahead again and try to find something a little more challenging for those of you who are saying I'm stuck in the 80s, 90s type questions. Okay, now as these get more challenging, let me re-clean the screen. Our next question says, you move left by 1 unit, we'll put a blue box around this question, and then you move down by 1 unit. You end at -2 and -5. Where did you start? So this time, if you're reading carefully, you'll see the trick thing. They don't tell you where you started, they tell you where you end at. I'm going to end at -2 and -5. So we'll go back to our red color, which is always our end point. And we know -2 for x, -5 for y is our ending point. So that red dot is where we finished off. And that was after we had moved left by 1 unit and down by 1 unit. So after we moved left by 1 and down by 1, we ended up here. So we need to kind of think backwards. We need to reverse this. So if I go right by 1 unit and up by 1 unit, that would move me back in time to where we started. So if I move right by 1 and up by 1, and I'm going to switch my color now to blue, this blue dot is where we started. You start here, move left by 1, move down by 1, and you end up at -2 and -5. So here the challenge is you need to go backwards. And in that case, it gets us to -1 and -4. For our coordinates, we see that blue point, the original point, must have been at -1 and -4 if the new point ended up at -2 and -5 after going left 1 and down 1. We're going to show one more example there because, that's another start point. So I'm going to keep moving forward until we get another one of those tricky reverse ones. And I think that's what we'll find in the, this gets even a bit tougher. They took the graph away from us, and this is a great one to talk about at the end. And so this is where you're not going to want to go make your own graph. You're just going to want to think about, is the x or the y value affected by my movement? So here we see you start at -3 and -4. You move up by 6 units. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little note here. Let me switch the color. Y gains 6. And the reason I'm saying that is if I move up by 6 units, the y value is going to gain, and specifically it will gain 6 units. So I'm going to do -4 plus 6. I'll go ahead and just write that out as text. The y value was at -4. And now we're going to add 6 to the y value. And -4 plus 6 will move us all the way into the positives. That would give us a +2. So ultimately the y value is now a +2. And the x value is not changing. So -3 and +2. And I did that just by adding 6 units to my y value since they told us we were moving up by 6. This definitely is a bit trickier, but again, focus on if they change the x value, they're going left or right. If they go up or down, they're changing the y value. And you don't really need a graph to do this, is what the challenge zone is trying to prove to you. If you've got any questions, some of this is a little bit challenging, so please, as always, feel free to email me. My email address, if I were a bit quicker with this tool, I could put that on the screen for you. But my email address is ddoherty3. And as always, that's at bostonpublicschools.org. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. Hope it was helpful.